So it is no secret that these are challenging times. The coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic is really only getting started. Hopefully everyone has been following the suggestions and oftentimes commandments of governments to keep not only yourselves safe, but also your families, your communities, and really all of us safe. Now, aside from these challenges, there have been a lot of discussions in the public and media realms on what it means to engage in work during a time of a pandemic. What does it mean to be a social problems worker amidst this crisis that is rapidly unfolding in what seems like, an hourly basis? So the nature of social problems work is fundamentally changing. And during a time of a pandemic, it reminds us that social problems work really is fluid and that it can change not only in terms of generations and decades and centuries in a historical context, but it can also change from day to day. So let's take a look at the different types of social problems work that have been transformed by the pandemic.
At St. Mary's Food Bank, the crowds just keep on coming.
I went to like 3-4 Family Dollars and it was like a scary thing. I'm like, this is really happening. This is serious. And
People like Carla Gaffney coming here to get food, she says, because the store shelves are nearly empty.
More than I expected, so I'm thankful.
The governor issuing the National Guard to keep up with the demand.
We don't know anything about stocking supermarket shelves, but we know everything about logistics.
Major General Michael McGuire says about 200 of its members are currently figuring out how they'll move supplies from warehouses to store shelves. Right now, there's no exact date on when it'll start.
If a county says they are short supplies at the actual stores at a greater percentage than another county, we're going to prioritize to the greatest need.
Staying safe while distributing food is also top of mind. Here at the Phoenix Rescue Mission, things have changed. Volunteers are now pushing these carts out and loading up what's inside into the cars of families in need, all with limited contact.
We've turned our parking lot into a drive-through.
The rescue mission says the demand for food has doubled within the past week. Their shelves are now empty.
This is the cooler, the freezer. This would normally be much more full with things like butter, eggs, and milk and bread.
And they're in desperate need of donations. The mission also relying on grocery stores to help families in need.
We don't have what we used to have, and we're not able to give away as much as we used to.
Jamie Warren, ABC 15 Arizona.
One issue that politicians have been bringing up is this idea of essential businesses during a pandemic and what that means, especially in comparison to, quote, normal times. So an essential business at this point, we have the following: grocery stores, food banks, pharmacies, medical supply stores, gas stations, liquor stores, hardware stores, laundromats, banks, auto services, and pet stores. Food chains and local businesses have even offered free delivery and free meals. Now, again, it's changing how we think about a social problems worker. Traditionally, when you think about these matters, you may think of someone who works, let's say, in a homeless shelter, trying to feed those most in need. Or maybe you're looking at a social problems worker engaging with people with well-being issues, mental health issues, or even foster children who don't have parents. These are the type of traditional social problem worker identity categories that automatically come to our minds when we think about a social problems worker. But here we are now. It seems like everyone is now becoming a social problems worker. So we see politicians actually adjusting to the current conditions presented by COVID-19. Take, for instance, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. He has issued an executive order that provides childcare for school-age children of, quote, emergency workers. And who's in this category of emergency worker? Anyone that works in a grocery store, including H-E-B, obviously, but Target, Costco, and Walmart. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you don't think of a traditional social problems worker as someone who works in, let's say, Walmart. But nevertheless, here we are. These people who are stocking the shelves are providing one of the most important necessities during this time of a pandemic. Another key issue in terms of the realm of social problems work is the lack of supplies that we see developing in hospitals around this country. So how can we engage in social problems work, especially doctors and medical professionals, if they don't have the tools to do so? So Mayor Bill de Blasio in New York City has really sounded the alarm lately.
Anyone out there who's scared, anyone who is confused, anyone who feels like we're dealing with something we never dealt with in our lives, you're right. This is, in many ways, the great unknown. But I'm also confident we can get through it. Here in New York City, we are 2 weeks or 3 weeks away from running out of the supplies we need most for our hospitals. The only way those supplies can be provided in time is through the full mobilization of the United States military. At this point, there's never been a greater no-brainer in the history of the Republic. Despite my tremendous confidence in our people and our ability to serve them, I also have to be very clear about the extent of this crisis. It is unlike anything we have seen outside of wartime.
He's saying that they're in danger of providing the right kind of need due to lack of supplies of mainly ventilators and masks. Interestingly, that's obviously not interesting, that's unfortunate, but what we see is non-traditional social problems workers coming to the forefront now. Companies like Ford, companies like GM and Tesla are now producing ventilators, which is something that they don't traditionally produce, but they are being kind of forced to engage in this type of social problems work because there's a demand and they have the capacity to do so.
You know, we just heard the president say he feels like he's on a wartime footing, and of course the opponent this time is something you can't see and you certainly don't want to touch. But the two of the big three, Ford and General Motors here, General Motors right behind me here, are saying, hey, if you need ventilators, we'll make them.
Most sensational in Buick's imposing parade of war products is America's answer to tank dominance in battle, the Hellcat.
Here's a quick history lesson. Detroit's Davison Freeway became the nation's first, built because GM needed to quickly transport its new tanks off the assembly line and overseas to war. Ford built B-24 Liberator aircraft at Willow Run in Ypsilanti instead of building cars. Both helped the United States win World War II. 80 years later, we're looking at a new war with a killer virus. National Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow telling Fox News.
I spoke to two of the three of the big three car makers today, and they want to get going as soon as they can. This
time it's war materiel of the medical kind, ventilators, and anything else really, needing great engineering and manufacturing prowess. Again, Detroit is saying yes, it's willing and able to put unused assembly space to good use, humanitarian use. GM's statement saying, quote, Mary Barra was in contact with the administration today to provide an update on the decision to suspend production. She also indicated GM is working to help find solutions for the nation during this difficult time and has offered to help. And we're already studying how we can potentially support production of medical equipment like ventilators.
Some of you may be asking as well, like, what can you be doing during this time of pandemic, of COVID-19? And perhaps we can take inspiration from a really interesting article that was published on March 18th in the Associated Press. The title of this article is Two 20-somethings Extend, quote, Invisible Hands in Virus Outbreak. These two young Americans have amassed 1,300 volunteers in 72 hours to deliver groceries and medicine to older New Yorkers and vulnerable people. They call themselves the Invisible Hands because they're kind of working behind the scenes. And again, these are just two 20-something-year-olds who don't really have any professional experience in this realm of providing key and necessary resources during a time of a pandemic.
So we're picking up a delivery for a woman named Carol. She lives just a few blocks away from here, and she's requested some salad stuff, some salad fixings, and some fruit. As I said, produce is really important to people. And so I'm just going to pick that up and then deliver it to her apartment. A little action shot of me wiping my fingers. people are able to submit requests online for grocery delivery, pharmaceutical deliveries, whatever it is that they need from outside if they don't want to go out. And we send a volunteer to pick it up for them. We make sure to minimize physical contact, so all money is slid under the door, the groceries are left outside, they're sanitized before they're left. But we also want to keep that social aspect, so we have volunteers call the people, check in with them, confirm their order.
See you soon, thank you so much.
And then say, hey, how's your day going? How are you doing? People are scared right now and they're stressed and they're looking for somebody to reach out. And this is one of those times when I remember that New York is such a small town and people are willing to look out for one another and have each other's backs.
I think that, unfortunately, a crisis like this very often brings out the very best. I think what's extraordinary about what you're doing, Liam, is that it's focusing on really neighbor to neighbor.
We've gotten a lot of outreach from people in a lot of different cities, and so by the end of this week, we hope to have chapters set up in a bunch of places around the country and potentially the world, depending on interest.
Okay.
Wash your hands.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Talking about putting on your social entrepreneurial hat during a time of a pandemic, Invisible Hands have definitely done it. Also, these two young Americans who initiated Invisible Hands, they happen to be Jewish Americans. And in the Associated Press article, they made reference to the importance of kind of assisting our common humanity, assisting our fellow human beings in a way that is just selfless. And one term that we may link to their kind of selflessness and their dedication to uplifting our common humanity, it's a Jewish phrase called Tikkun Olam.
Tikkun Olam is a term that gets thrown around all the time by Jews, by non-Jews, by politicians, by people speaking to a Jewish group. But what does this word actually mean? We have come to use this term to mean everything from volunteering in a soup kitchen or a homeless shelter to working on public policy advocacy issues. We use it to refer often to two different sides of the same issue. I've seen it used to refer to both sides of the abortion debate, for instance. We use it so often that sometimes it seems like the term doesn't mean anything at all. And so I got interested in figuring out for myself where this term came from and what it actually means. The term has a very long and complex history, but basically there are 4 phases. In the very earliest uses, the term means literally fixing the world, a physical repair of the world. And it's used in Midrash, in rabbinic commentary, to refer to God making physical adjustments in creation to making sure that the world would continue to stand. And then the term goes away for quite a while, for about 13 or 1400 years, and it reemerges in mystical texts in the 16th century, in which the mystics in Sfat in northern Israel use the term to refer to the possibility of bringing the world back to the way that it was before human beings came along and broke things. There's a concept of tikkun. The idea is that in the very creation of the world, there was a shattering. There was a shattering of the vessels with which God was creating the world. Human beings, the first human being, Adam, had a week to fix things, and instead he sinned. And he was, as we know from the biblical story, expelled from the Garden of Eden. And so from then on, human beings have spent all of our time trying to do tikkun, trying to fix the world. And according to the mystics, this happens not through specifically social justice work, but it happens through any kind of mitzvah. So not only through tzedakah, though also through tzedakah, but also through saying blessings or observing certain ritual moments. So they see tikkun as a constant process that happens through all of the different ways that we observe commandments. The term goes away again and then reemerges in the 1950s or 1960s in America, we're not entirely sure how, to mean social justice work or social action work. So it's had a long and interesting history.
So what can we do at this point in this pandemic? What can we do to heal a fractured world? How can we uplift our common humanity? How can we, non-traditional social problems workers, enter into this realm of social problems work and be effective in the social problems work? So there are some questions to consider. How have your views on social problems work been shaped by the COVID-19 pandemic? And secondly, how can you become a social problems worker in these challenging times. So there you have it. You have 2 questions. You can leave your answers in the comments section below, or you can send a message via another mechanism. I hope you are all staying safe, stay isolated, self-quarantine yourself, and wash your hands. These are basic, fundamental requests by the experts and the medical professionals. Make sure you're listening to them and be careful with what you read in the media. We have to make sure that we're sifting through some of the nonsense out there. I hope we have a good day. It's going to be a tough week, but we just need to hunker down. I hope everyone's doing well. Adios.